Welfare of citizens depends on their decision making, how they do it transparently. And also the crisis means a very difficult economic condition, but sometimes it is a reason for abusing certain opportunities by certain officials or representatives of state-owned enterprises, thereby it may deteriorate the economics and weaken the institutions. So it might be not in favor of the state-owned enterprises. Accordingly, we shall try to consider the problem of transparency and financial sustainability of state-owned enterprise comprehensively. We shall introduce the new ratings and talk in clear and understandable language and parameters so to make easy reception of this material and raise the awareness of the population for state-owned enterprises. I want to know that the overall activity we are making is increasing the state governance level and promoting improvement of the policy of state-owned enterprises, municipal and other forms of state ownership. So our ratings cover a wide range of issues, but today we shall concentrate on a narrow topic, but very important one, the activity of state-owned enterprise. Accordingly, the results of ratings and information we shall introduce today will be useful for everybody who will be able to use this source of information to assess the trends. And accordingly, a rating of transparency of state-owned enterprises will be used to increase this transparency. Accordingly, financial sustainability rating will be used to increase the financial sustainability and performance. Yulia Prochenko will talk on the details of transparency, and later on I will talk on the results of the financial health rating of state-owned enterprises. Thank you, Igor. Whilst preparing the rating, we encountered the situation that among many officials and workers of state-owned enterprise, they don't have a final understanding of what is corporate governance. Why is it so important? That's why we asked our colleague from Slovakia to explain more in detail about this, because they have great experience of corporate governance, much larger than in Ukraine, in our opinion. So the basic principles of corporate governance in state-owned enterprise, why is it important? Why is it necessary to implement in Ukraine? I would like our colleague from Slovakia, Peter Golic, to talk on that. He's the director of social and economic reforms in ECO. Please, we wait for Slovakia connection.
Мене звати Петр Голіч. Я керівник аналітичного центру Словаччини, Інститут соціальних та економічних реформ. Разом з Міжнародним центром перспективних досліджень в Києві ми працювали над проектом в Україні, який завершується цією конференцією. На ній будуть представлені оновлені показники прозорості та фінансового стану найбільших державних підприємств в Україні. У своїй презентації я коротко розповім вам про цей проект та про основні принципи корпоративного управління державними підприємствами, а також деякі приклади поганої та хорошої практики зі Словаччини. Проект називається «Зміцнення демократичної стійкості ключових державних інституцій в Україні». Ми почали роботу над ним у липні 2020 року і завершуємо його у вересні цього року. Проект фінансово підтримується за програмою Посольства США в Україні та організацією Slovak Aid та заснований на попередніх ініціативах, над якими ми спільно з МЦПД працювали з 2015 року. Наша основна мета – підтримка демократії в Україні шляхом оцінки та посилення незалежності ключових регуляторних та судових установ, а також оцінка прозорості фінансового здоров'я та підтримка впровадження антикорупційних заходів у державних компаніях та органах місцевого самоврядування. Усі заходи ґрунтуються на передачі досвіду, взятого з подібних проєктів, реалізованих у Словаччині. Серед наших ключових результатів в червні цього року ми опублікували звіт про незалежність 17 регуляторних та судових установ України та відобразили результати та рекомендації на новоствореному інтернет-порталі. Крім цього, ми оновили оцінки прозорості та фінансового стану державних підприємств та органів місцевого самоврядування. Ви можете переглянути результати на спеціальних інтернет-порталах, які ми розробили разом з МЦПД. У таблиці, зображеній на слайді, показники рейтингів прозорості значно покращилися для міст, регіонів та державних підприємств за останні кілька років. На що ми сподіваємось, частково вплинули наш проект. Мої колеги розкажуть вам про це більше.
And we hope this partially influenced our project. My colleagues will talk a little bit more about this. I want to draw your attention to the corporate governance state-owned enterprise in my presentation. This conference is dedicated to the ratings of transparency and financial sustainability of state-owned enterprise in Ukraine, but this topic is much broader. First of all, should be noted why shall we pay attention to the state-owned enterprises. The reason is that corporate governance of state-owned enterprises is defining the quality of democracy. A poorly managed company can become a source of big corruption and non-efficiency, which destroys the public standards and democratic values. Parallelly with this, the citizens get poor quality products and their quality of life is reducing. Non-efficiency also results in low dividends and high subsidies being a burden for the state budget. Before talking about principles, I would like to describe the current situation in Slovakia now. We have tens of state-owned enterprises to which belong many companies from different areas of economics. They are important for a state budget and for municipal budget. They pay 400 to 500 millions of euro as dividends and take about 2 billion euro for transfers and subsidies from the state budget. They have mainly autonomous management in certain ministers where, as a rule, transparency and financial liability is missing, is absent. There was no need to improve the management at the central level. It has to be changed during next years because the Ministry of Finances plans to implement corporate governance principles defined by OECD. Also, the ministry started the process of due diligence in certain companies. Insufficient efforts of the state have been partially compensated by NGOs, activity one of which is Transparency International Slovakia, which regularly publishes a transparency rating of the largest public companies. The rating we publish today in Ukraine is based exactly on the methodology of assessment created by a Slovakian department of branch of Transparency International. Another public organization is INECO Institute, which for the first time published the open procedure for selection of top managers of Slovakian companies. Currently, we work on the relevant assessment of all the financial companies in Slovakia. This transparency belongs to the highest, to the most basic principles of corporate governance. I'll give you a few examples of bad practice in Slovakia. During recent years, the Ministry of Transport selected 11 members of boards in 4 big companies engaged in the construction of highways, railway transport, and the airport of Bratislava. Only 14 candidates met the criteria from those 14. There was no competition at all. Frequently, the CV was not published and some changes were published few weeks after the selection process, the competition process was announced. One mass media says the candidates who don't know about the requirements, etc., they are sure that the winners were assigned beforehand. We have also examples of good practices. During 2 years, the Ministry of Finances assigned or elected 8 member of boards of directors in 2 big state-owned companies for transit of electric energy and Slovakian Bank. 52 candidates made the criteria. The ministry helped. The commissions helped to assess the best candidates. The minister said, I wanted to be sure I selected the best ones with no political privileges. We shows for a high quality manager. A short example, best practice from Bratislava. In 2019, the municipality elected four heads of boards of directors in four big companies belonging to the municipality for transport, waste treatment, water supplies, and city forests. 74 candidates met basic criteria from 104. 16 candidates participated in the public hearings. The commissions helped to assess the best candidates. All CV and conclusions were published. The city also accepted the clear methodology of selection of top managers and used it as a standard in all the next tenders. I also mentioned about few specifics of due management of state-owned corporations, overall transparency, financial condition, and procedures of selection for top managers. Now I will give you more detailed review based upon key principles of OECD for corporate governance, which the Ministry of Finances plans to implement in Slovakia. This list of principles is not complicated. I just highlight here those I believe most topical. First of all, there should be transparency in the activity of the state-owned enterprise which is acting for the benefit of the society. There should not be cross subsidies. The enterprise should inform on all state supports like subsidies, transport, or guarantees. The payment for the workers should be transparent. It should not be a secret. The state have to provide for the transparency by regular assessment and setting up and awarding the best transparent companies. This practice was developed in this project together with ICPS. As I already mentioned before, there should be open procedures for selection to top jobs. Independent experts should be engaged to assess the candidates. Also, the activity of public companies should be protected from any political intervention. The companies should act autonomously without the intrusion by the state officials. The activities should be separate from economic policy. High officials shouldn't even be members of supervisory boards, etc. They should have a right to select all directors with no political influence. Autonomy means for the company, for the enterprise, not to be isolated in different ministries. The management of state and dot policy should be coordinated centrally. The central authority should monitor and update the goals each company should adhere, and also the key parameters of performance KPIs, which show observance of those goals could be financial and non-financial, and the results of the fulfillment should be published in annual reports every year. The government should approve the central report with combined parameters of big enterprises. The company should also have ethic codes, including consumer protection rules. Financial or political campaigns should be banned, and also a high quality independent external audit of financial reporting of every state-owned enterprise should become a standard practice. For inspiration, I will show you the plan of implementation of these principles in Slovakia. In the nearest time, our government has to approve the principles of OECD. Ministry of Finances has to publish in its webpage the list of state-owned enterprises with their legal form, structure of ownership, economic activity, and also data with key financial indicators, dividends, and subsidies. The ministry also will collect information on the goals of specific companies, definition of key parameters, and also data on fulfillment of those parameters. The process of due diligence the companies already started. After that, the ministry will perform monitoring and will report on the compliance of all the company with the outlined principles. So I hope this presentation helped you to understand better Why it's so important to care about the management of state-owned companies? We started implementation of few events in Ukraine and Slovakia, a few measures in Ukraine and Slovakia, but we have to do much more. I hope Ukrainian government will be open for implementation of OECD principles, and the experts of OECD and all the public organization will be able to participate in this important process. Thank you for your attention. Bye-bye. Thank you, Peter. We also hope for that. What happens in Ukraine? Let us see and hear the junior experts on economic issues, Yulia Prochenko, will help us. She will introduce the rating of transparency of state-owned enterprise in Ukraine for 2021. Yulia, you have the floor. Thank you. Good morning. And I would like to switch to the topic of corporate governance, which in Ukraine, to add to this topic, since 2019, this topic is also implemented in Ukraine in big companies mostly, and we analyzed a part of those big companies. I want immediately to switch to explain why our project is important, why we are studying it. Because the welfare of the citizens depends upon the financing of state authorities and state-owned enterprise. It is an important factor for the analysis of the companies. Generally, there are 3,400, 500 of state-owned enterprises in Ukraine, according to different estimates. Also, it's very difficult to analyze the data on state-owned enterprises, and frequently the experts or the journalists don't want to waste their time on that. But this work has to be done anyway to monitor and control the performance of those enterprises. Obviously, the operations, the activity of the enterprise should be controlled so to exert pressure on them to motivate them to improve the activity. Our web portal, where you can see the results of this study, of this research, is now shown. Its web address is shown on the website. Please come to this web portal. I will talk about it a little bit. It is as follows. The ratings of transparency and ratings of financial health are represented here on top 50 big state-owned companies. You can see the list as a whole of the rating, and also separately you can go to each company and look what happens separately in each company according to the request, what you want to see. What can you see in this website? This is general information on the enterprise, key parameters for different areas. Also, you can see the ratings by industries. You can compare with the work of state-owned enterprise with the activities of other enterprise and compare the activities. Even you can compare it with Slovakian companies, enterprises activity. I will talk a little bit about the methodology. We selected the largest top companies for parameter of overall assets value. 50 enterprises were analyzed for in transparency. We assessed 60 parameters, and we organized relevant requests for public information, and also we went to the websites of those enterprises. We used other resources, state resources as well, to find the necessary information to conduct an in-depth analysis of transparency and openness of state-owned enterprises. Also, these 60 parameters were divided into 6 big groups: transparency, access to information, economic parameters, state procurement, and own property, human resources policy, ethics and conflict of interest, and grants and charity policy. Overall rating is from 0 to 100 points, and now we shall see the results obtained in the process of the analysis of the rating of our 50 top state-owned enterprises. So the best results for transparency rating were obtained by the following enterprises: Ukrenergo, Ukrpost, Administration of Seaports of Ukraine, Ukrrailway, Ukr Hydropower, Naftogaz, Oil and Gas of Ukraine, Naftogaz Ukraine, Ukrenergoatom, Chernobyl Nuclear Power Station, Kharkov Obelenерgo, and Mariupol Sea Trade Port. And we welcome those companies to be in the top of the ratings. This year, the overall transparency increased by 2%. It's a good indicator compared to 2019, much higher than in 2019. And the bottom results were obtained in the following enterprises: State Enterprise Ukr Project Booked, Ukr Space, Administration of Krivorizhia Mining Complex, titanium and manganese plant in Krivorizhia, coal companies, United Mining Company, and another one. There are no data on the state-owned company, which is in the status of suspension. No data are published on that company. What we got as a result of the analysis, which parameters? The level of transparency this year is much higher than last year. Last year it was 55%. This year it makes 82%. And the average parameter of transparency increased as a whole. It makes 49% according to our assessments. Now a little bit of infographics. So by categories, the best results were achieved by the enterprises in the category ethics and conflict of interest. We have seen whether the company publishes the code of ethics, anti-corruption program. Is there any protection of interests of the workers of the enterprise? Is there protection in case of corruption? Detection in this indicator came to 67%. The less attention is paid by the companies to the category grants and charity policy. It's explained by that part of companies are not able to finance charity activities because the means and they obtain from the company, they have to invest in the development of the company or to provide for its stable work. Accordingly, this parameter is low. To be added that the economic growth parameters are published by the enterprises rather regularly. You can see them in the reports by the companies and also in a separate section in their website or on a separate section. Most transparent are the enterprises in such industries as oil, gas, electric power, and transportation company. Also, good results of transparency were shown by state-owned enterprises with assets higher than 50 billion hryvnias. It's clear that to develop a website and its content, a company needs money and few persons to provide for operation of that website. That could explain such a result. The enterprises with the number of personnel over 10,000 persons demonstrated higher openness and transparency compared to other companies. Also, another interesting point is that more transparent are regions. The north and east and central and southern, and less transparent are the enterprises located in the western regions. Interesting facts. 4 enterprises from 50 don't have their own website. In the modern world, where the process of virtualization, digitalization happens, there is a mistrust to the companies without websites, not present in the networks. So it's important factor to be taken into account. 18 state-owned enterprises didn't answer our requests for information, although this indicator is better than in 2019 when there was 28 not responding companies. 17 companies provided information on bonuses and salaries. Also, after the implementation of obligatory requirement for such information provision, this indicator will grow. Obviously, only 2 companies published the procedure of selection of candidates for jobs, for top jobs in the company. So we have to pay attention to it. The transparency of selection procedure should be open for everybody who would like to look at it and to analyze it. 32 companies support the relevant measures for development of their personnel. It's also important. The personnel should be developed, and the balance between sport, between leisure and work should be created. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Yulia. For me personally, it was impressive to hear that a part of the companies even don't have a website. It is very strange. Next, we have the rating of financial health of state-owned enterprises in Ukraine for 2020, which will be presented by Artem Kiyan, the expert on the economic issues of ICPDs. I will introduce to you very interesting material. We shall see what we have with transparency and financial indicators abroad. Before starting, I would like to note that state-owned enterprises is a much more complicated phenomenon than just private business, private companies, because a state-owned enterprise, on top of the main profit indicator, they have also a social component. When the profit is not only in the maximum indicator of enterprise performance. So in this rating, we will take into account other indicators as well. But there is an opinion on the state-owned enterprises are always bad. They are managed badly. So, but the assessment of the activity of state-owned enterprise during COVID crisis proves to that not the form of ownership is important, but the content. And the companies could be governed independently from the form of ownership. Let us see the rating and its results now. The financial health of state-owned enterprises is also placed on the website. You can go to this website to see all the results. So we selected the 50 top state-owned companies using the parameter overall assets value. And we collected the data using the information published on the official website of these organizations and also using public information requests. Also on the websites of the subjects of governance of state-owned properties. I will not go deep into the parameters, into the definition of these indicators, but you can understand that we were not able to access all possible areas of activities of this company. So how did we assess? The financial sustainability is considered using four main criteria: liquidity, profitability, leverage, and activity. Briefly speaking, liquidity and profitability is the capacity of the company to pay and to quickly to settle short-term debts, and profitability means how much the assets can generate the profit of the company. Leverage means the debt of the company, and the activities, how much performing is the company, is the enterprise in its daily activity. Accordingly, we draw a scale from 0 to 10. For each company, 0 is the worst and 10 the best. This company shows ratios, way ratios, and how they are distributed and which role they play in the overall index of financial sustainability. It should be also said that financial health indicator is very multi-componential. It requires special monitoring. We are not just believing this year the company was good, next year the company is bad. You have to understand that the economic processes should not be measured by the activity of 1 year. Accordingly, the weight ratios of included the consideration of 3 previous years of activity of the company. We see the results of the last year, year before the last, and 3 years ago activities. And the summation of all this makes an overall index. Now let us switch to the results of the rating. So we see that state administration of seaports of Ukraine is on the first place. Second place is occupied by state-owned enterprise International Airport Lviv, and Southern Sea Trade Port is in the third place. It's very significant and interesting rating. We shall discuss these results, how those companies and enterprises could achieve these indicators. But before that, we have to say those are the companies demonstrating not very good indicators of development. So it turns out that now, upon the results of 2020, the results we published this year, the worst companies are in the area, in the industry of coal mining. We see Solidiv coal and Mirnograd coal. And also Ukrspace, Ukrkosmos suffered a lot. It is not very good at all. So what conclusions can be drawn? Notwithstanding Corona crisis, the best state-owned companies, same as in previous years, belong to the sphere of transport and logistics. Notwithstanding complicated conditions, fall in demand of goods turnover, passengers turnover, the state-owned transport enterprises achieved good development indicators. But the COVID crisis as a whole negatively impacted the activity of state-owned enterprises. We see the trends that the value of assets of the largest company reduced by 112 billion hryvnias in 20 compared to year 19. Notwithstanding this reduction, this decrease. The largest state-owned company traditionally is the national company Naftogaz of Ukraine with 445 billion hryvnia assets. Still, they didn't get the largest profit. The largest profit was obtained by the company Ukr Hydro Energy. They have got 4 billion of profit. Overall trends in the market should also be noted, not very good. They were in 2020. The amount of net profit of those companies made 52 billion hryvnia in 2019. In 2020, this amount became negative, minus 72 billion hryvnia. The companies at most loss in 2020 were Ukrainian Railway Company, State-owned enterprise National Energy Company. They have 27 billions of loss, and Ukrenergo has 37 billion hryvnias of loss. And the accounts and the debt of the company made 37 billion, and it is a very high indicator. But there are also some interesting facts. Notwithstanding the corona crisis in 2020, the number of workers in the state-owned enterprises increased, didn't decrease. Ukrzaliznytsia, Ukr was the largest employer in 2020, but in Agrarny Fund and Financial of Infrastructural Project, they conducted an internal audit and they found very big problems and discordance in the indicator and reporting. They changed their financial indicators, and it was a correction of our rating. We are following what happens in those companies, and we are updating the information timely. The analysis of dynamic of the parameters of state-owned enterprise is important. The leaders in 2020 was the National Public TV Broadcasting Company of Ukraine, National Complex Passenger of Ukraine, State Mortgage Entity, and Ukrainian Mail, Ukrpost. But it was not pleasant to see that Ukrspace dropped, and also a reduction of indicators by Southern Machine Building Plant by Makarov also deteriorated, and Ukrenergo problem also influenced negatively the activity of airport Borispol. And it was also shown in our ratings. Looking profitability, we see that this indicator remained approximately the same level, but profitability or marketability deteriorated due to COVID. But we see that in 2020 there was no critical situation, and the overall indicator of financial health became lower, but not very much lower compared to the previous years. Separately, we should dwell on such indicators as assets, return on assets, and also due to the COVID, this indicator worsened. Yearly, it made 2.9% in 2019, and it became minus 5.9% in 2020. Why it happened? Only 20 enterprises from 50 could get profit in 2020. Also, the profitability margin deteriorated, meaning this return on sales. It dropped from 29 to minus 73. Also, ratio of overall debt to overall assets value increased from 64 in 19 to 74 in 2020. It's a very important indicator when an enterprise is in the top 10. It means those companies are dependent from the state or financing. And the last fact, liquidity indicators to be analyzed. in the top 10 largest company, a big company of not utilized funds is so the turnover of and the utilization rate of those funds should be increased. Also, high indicators of working capital turnover in the state-owned companies. They try to quickly distribute, to quickly utilize certain funds, not to leave them for a relevant period. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, it may last more than 1 year, and for 1 year it distorts the statistics of this coefficient. Those were main facts regarding financial sustainability. But I also would like to notice that there are some points which accelerated the processing of data and improved the correlation of the indicators. We would be thankful to the companies if they would publish regularly and timely their financial reports, that they would publish data in full volume, they would use a single format for this data, because somebody gives data and numbers in billions, others in billions. Some companies provide data in non-copy pastable format. Other companies use Excel tables, etc. It complicates the collection and use of information. And I'd like to for more companies to provide the information in easier way for the society to be able to do analysis in a more convenient way. Also, those companies should promptly respond on the requests and remarks. I would like to note that the work we are doing is very comprehensive. This slide shows three main web portals developed by us through the duration of the project. You see, we regard here not only transparency and financial health of state-owned enterprise, but also transparency and financial health of regions and cities of Ukraine. This web portal also has very interesting information, not as interesting as in state-owned enterprise. It goes about the means of state budgets and how they are distributed. Also, this year we issued a new rating, formal independence of most important institutions of Ukraine. We analyze it and we make recommendations to increase the independence. We try to increase and to improve the activity of our ratings. We shall be thankful to everybody who will join our activity and will help to broaden our ratings sense rigor. We now have in connection the representatives of state-owned enterprises, of the public sector, and we shall give you the floor after the last presentation, which will take place today. We want not by significance list, but not last but not least, we want to engage Slovakia now, because one of the goals of this webinar is to deepen our understanding of financial sustainability and transparency of state-owned enterprises in Ukraine, to understand this issue more comprehensively. I asked the director of Transparency International Slovakia, Michal Pishko, to help us in that. Please let us hear Slovakia. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Michal Pishko, the director of Slovakian NGO Transparency International Slovakia. It's my pleasure to stay with you, would be online, and have the opportunity to share a certain experience in the area of public surveillance in state companies. We assess the transparency of state-owned sector in Slovakia starting since 2012. I would like to talk something more about the transparency and openness of Slovakian company regarding the salary of the top manager. Nobody exactly knew in the beginning how many state-owned municipal companies are working in the company. The truth is that they provide critically important services and provide for high quality of our roads, railways, and services for municipal heating or waste treatment. And this company at the same time use a huge state resources. The number of top companies included to our latest rating regards 10 billion of state budgets, 10 billion euro. But there are managers who take decisions for hundreds of thousands of euro. Frequently, they are less monitored by the public than other companies. Another issue connected with the activity of this company, many of them are non-performing, non-efficient. They're constantly in loss. But when we check the register of the company and we focused on how the management of the company is selected, we found a strong correlation with selection cycle. As this diagram shows, about 60 companies of state-owned enterprise were substituted this year after election. Most of them were elected with no selection procedure. Politically, the red line in the graph shows the replacement of top managers of state-owned companies, and the green line shows private companies, no correlation with the election cycle. Last year, there have been some indignation of the public due to some reasons. Slovakian press informed us that the manager of the state heat producing companies who worked a very short time have got about 4 million euro for 4 months of the work. Unfortunately, the public discussion about the commiseration of the salary of these top managers are disproportional and not fair. In 2015, The Guardian published an article on the incorrespondence between the salary of managers and other workers and the relevant criteria of efficiency of performance assessment in this company. An executive director received 4 times higher salaries than British PM, and the company had insufficient income from the advertisement at the same time. The state-owned enterprise could achieve higher performance levels. That is why we introduced salary transparency rating. And we focused on the companies belonging to the state sector in Slovakia. Our Ukrainian and Moldovan colleagues started to publish such ratings since 2016. As you can see, 50 companies were included to Ukrainian rating and 60 companies in Moldova. We were surprised in a good sense for the improvement of current rating in Ukraine. The graph shows they achieved about 49% and look much better even than their Slovakian or Moldovan colleagues. But this comparison should be assessed correctly because some indicators are different in different countries and have less or more data. In Slovakian rating, we got data from 8 different sources: website of the company, central registers for economic parameters and public procurement, all the published contracts and invoices. We also asked specific questions according to the law on freedom, access to information. Also, we used the trick of hidden buyer when we asked information on name of simple citizens. One of the questions was concerning salary of top manager. In the previous rating, almost half of main companies didn't provide the details to us. So we had to go in court against some of them. In 2019, we observed certain improvement in this area. A part of companies who provide information for the salary of the manager achieved 20% for members of board and 53% for general directors. You can see on the first graph, these groups are mixed in a single rating in Ukraine and Moldova. The share of best practices achieved 14% in Ukraine. It's a paradox, but the company adhering best practices in this area the heat company Koshitsky heat power station, which was negatively mentioned in the context. Now it is the most transparent public company in Slovakia. They publish a lot of important data, important for public survey. For example, the minutes of meeting of the General Assembly for selection of the boards, etc., and the information on salaries and premiums of all top managers. As I already mentioned, about half of all the Slovakian companies were ready to share details on the salary and premiums of their managers. Most of them don't publish details on their website, and we have to ask about it. All this information, including overall salary of top manager, is publicly available in our web portal. If you're interested to know the details for the highest salary and premium, always 37,000 euro or 11,400 euro a month, was announced by the general director of the railway company of Slovakia. As already mentioned, we decided to go into court against some companies who didn't give us data on the salary of their managers in 2015. One of them was the Slovakian gas industry. It is the second state-owned enterprising company by size, with 1.9 billion of euro of turnover. After a number of court trials, hearings, the Supreme Court took decision for the benefit in favor of public interests. And they ruled that such companies as Slovakian gas industry are managing the assets, and the public has the right to know how they do that. We used 5 years to achieve it, but finally this company gave us information on salary and bonuses of their managers. Some members of the board got 12,000 euro in 2015, but the best victory is in that we managed to prove that such companies should give information not only to us, but to everybody who will request us. There is no precedent system in Slovakia, so we have to change legislation to fight intransparency. That's why we urge to change legislation. The discussion is now open and new. We propose the legal obligation for all public companies to publish information regarding salary and other benefits for their top managers. If we shall be successful in that, there will be no more need to go into court and undertake legal action against certain companies. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Michal. And we would like to give the floor to our Zoom participants who take part not only in YouTube but also in Zoom. I see the head of management of state mortgage company of Ukraine, Yegor Pretulov. We want to welcome this enterprise with the growth, with the dynamics in the rating of transparency and financial sustainability. Mr. Igor, can you comment a few words on how the publication of such rating can help in your activity, and what was your reaction when you knew about these indicators? Igor, we don't hear and don't see you now. Can you connect? Please do it. And we invite everybody who wants to take floor, please write into chat about this or switch on your mic and camera. We shall see it and we shall give the floor to you. Meanwhile, I would like to ask to have few comments from Yegor Kiyan on what Michal said and what Peter said. It should be noted that really we see that also Ukraine and Slovakia are different countries. There are European practices in Slovakia. Anyway, there are certain problems in both countries with state-owned enterprises, problems with transparency and financial stability, but differently from Ukrainian situation, in Slovakia and other countries, the civil society is more activity and they are playing their role more actively, and there is a larger pressure from the public on the activity of state-owned enterprises. This monitoring, additional web portals are created, investigations are launched, and these ratings become a good tool. Obviously, there are no ideal ratings. It's not possible to calculate everything, but we have to understand that the rating is one of the tools to understand what happens in the country, how should we act in the future, and what future trends might be followed. The examples of by our Slovakian colleagues prove to that such practices are useful to be followed and implemented. We saw that the enterprises addressed to us, they asked what parameters should we improve. So they consulted with us. It was our pleasure to see that the state-owned enterprise are interested in that. They're also interested to know how to act transparently, where the attention should be paid to. So we recommended the best European practices of state-owned enterprises activity. On the overall transparency, as we see, increased. We see that the maximum indicator of transparency also increased and achieved 72%. It's a very good indicator. It can even compete with Slovakian companies, enterprises. So the situation when we have the feedback and interaction, when there is interest from state-owned enterprises to improve their indicators and also their image, it proves on that there is an impact of our project on the activity. If the indicator is low, it depends upon the mentality of the managers and their strategic initiative for finances. In the sense of transparency, our project really can be proud of that. I would like also to ask Yulia in the sense of transparency. She was engaged in transparency rating, creation and maintenance. So the question is, which of the state-owned enterprises impressed you with the activity, etc.? You would outline some enterprises. As the research showed, large companies with big financing, they have resources to develop good website and have good contact for it. They provide a lot of information for economic and other parameters. Different contracts and financial documents even can be seen there so we could be able to comment and to assess on the activity of the company. The companies, the enterprises with lower resources cannot allow themselves to develop such website and to provide for full content. So their sites are not so much informative. But they just called back to us, explained their situation, and gave answers in written to the questions we sent to them. I wouldn't highlight separate enterprises, because each enterprise has an individual approach to how their website should be shaped, what information should be published, because there are no uniform strict requirements as to what should be published. It depends not only upon that the transparency should be required, that we should create a more transparent state-owned enterprise, but also it depends upon the financing and the possibilities of the enterprises. So now the question is to both of you. Should there be approved uniform single forms of reporting, including financial reporting for state-owned enterprise? It's my own opinion, and maybe the participants will join our discussion. It's a very interesting question. The development and support of the website means big monies, but still not very big monies. It is a paradox. Having a wish, a company could find monies to develop website, to support it. say once more, not only we looked for information on the website, the transparency is a very bulky notion. Yeah, a company could not have own website, but they can participate in public procurement using Prozor, can use the tenders, and this also can raise the transparency of the activity. The better the company uses all information platforms, and we have a good chance that Ukraine is one of the leaders in the world in implementation of digital technologies. On certain technologies, we are outsiders compared to Western countries, but on some others, we are ahead of them. Such examples as Prozoro and others, we see that there are no analogs in the world of those. So this is a good trend that more and more enterprises are joining this system. So even if they don't have a good website, you can trace the activity on those open web portals like Prozoro, etc. As regards the requirements, the procedure, it's my opinion, yes, some recommendations for uniformness should be there. But everything would depend on the size and activity type of activity of the enterprise. Some recommendations should be there, would not be mandatory, but recommendative. Thank you, Igor. I invite once more the participants in Zoom who want to state your opinion. You have this opportunity now. Please switch on your sound, switch on your web camera. Let us know you want to take a floor. And our operator can give you the floor. Okay, if we don't have somebody wanting to take floor right now, we invite you to the website presented by our colleagues to know more in detail about the indicators, about the indexes and sub-indexes. I believe it will be useful for the workers of state-owned enterprises, not to only see your own results, but also to compare them with the results of your colleagues, other state-owned enterprises. Also to compare with the experience of Slovakia and Moldova, they have also these websites with ratings which are very similar to ours. I would like to wrap up to resume today's meeting, and I ask Igor to do this. Thank you. I believe the information sounded today was interesting and useful. Obviously, it's important, uh, besides being useful, because we have to understand that the activity of state-owned enterprises works for the benefit and welfare of the population. And in any way, they have to generate some profits in the strategic industries to generate profits to incomes to the budget. But we see that the COVID crisis negatively impacted the activity, notwithstanding the COVID crisis and the deterioration of the indicators, but the overall transparency of the companies improved, not impaired. So we see that certain enterprises are at lows. Doesn't mean they should be privatized immediately, no way. But it means that we have to maintain, to support those companies. They eventually might be helped from state budget, but if the situation will worsen even more, and if indicators, the indicators would not be controlled by the public, it will negatively impact of all of us. That's why we have to do that. It was the last presentation within the framework of this project up to now. We hope this project will be prolonged, will be continued. We hope city district and Oblast administration will join our project. The representatives of state administrations and institutions to improve our projects. Our ratings are objective, but some indicators some improvements could be made. You might draw our attention to that. We hope for such your support and for such your interest, because main value of our ratings, it is the stability, the continuity of monitoring. We conduct them since 2014. The more uninterrupted and continuous the better is the monitoring of indicators, and it helps to improve the indicators. If there is some gap, it negatively influences. So the specifics of this project is its continuity, uninterruptedness. And with the analysis of the results shows that the enterprises develop well. There's progress for city and rural administrations. The disclosure of data and transparency improves. Well, it says to the positiveness of our project, and we hope that our project will help to continue giving informational activity to in this space. We don't have any analysis for more complicated issues, but we hope that our ratings will support intentions, the information area, because we see the feedbacks incoming to ICPS. We hope to maintain this high bar and to expand our ratings in the future. I thank, frankly, honestly, to all the participants. I'll remind you that we participated in the online webinar Financial Sustainability and Transparency of State-owned Enterprise of Ukraine within the framework of the project enhancing the resilience of key state institutions in Ukraine, implemented by International Center for Prospective Studies and the Institute for Social Reforms of Slovakia, INEC. Financially, this initiative is supported by U.S. Embassy. I thank all the participants. I invite you to visit our web portals and to go into details of the results of our rating. Thank you very much. Have a good day.